Hello, I'm Tab Faber with We the People of Gladwin County, and today we've got Pete Konetchy in Gladwin County here to answer a few questions on why we should support him for the 4th Congressional District primary race for the United States House. Welcome, Pete.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Excellent. First question, everyone's going to ask it, why do you want to run for Congress?
Well, it's just that I think that our nation's on the precipice of its survival. Unless we make changes, we're not going to exist as a nation anymore. So I want to run for Congress because I think it's imperative that we decrease the influence of government in our daily lives. This nation was really founded on the concept of individual freedom, individual liberty. Unless we get back to those concepts, we're going to cease to exist. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to be one voice, one additional voice in the House, which goes through and tries to restrain government back to its duties. And its duties are very important. It's for common defense, it's for representing us in the world affairs, it's for maintaining a sovereign nation, but the federal government has no authority whatsoever over the daily lives of the people or the states. And I'd like to go through and be a voice for the people to get the government out of our lives.
Excellent. What I've been finding is that, surprisingly, when you're running on constitutionally limited government, and what's your feelings on why does, it seems like the majority of the left, a surprising amount in the independent realm and on the right side, are a little timid with the term of the Constitution and constitutionally limited government. They kind of withdraw from that. Why do you think that is?
Well, it's just that I think a lot of it has to do with our educational system. And our educational system has, in effect, dumbed down the population so much that people don't even know the greatness of the constitutionally limited government. Right after the Articles of Confederation failed in 1787 and the Constitution was ratified, we were a third world nation. We were in debt up to our eyeballs. We were devastated from the revolution. And by implementing the provisions of the Constitution, an unfettered people were able to develop the world's greatest superpower. By the 1930s, we were number one as far as military, economic, charitable morality. We were the greatest nation this earth has ever seen. And that's only because the people were unfettered by a government. They were able to, excel based on their own initiative. Ever since 1930, we've had, the Great Depression programs as far as public works programs. We've had the war on poverty in the 1960s. Government's integrated itself into every single aspect of the people's lives. And that's been extremely detrimental because the federal government implements a one-size-fits-all policy, such as Obamacare, so Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid. And those are not the best solutions to the needs of the people. And a centralized government cannot come up with the appropriate needs because you can't have one person that says this is the correct solution. In a free society of 300 million people basically that are looking at the same problems, they're all choosing the best solution for their own needs, and that naturally uplifts society. And that's what I want to get back to. The people make their own decisions, get government out of our lives.
Okay, I've got another question for you. It seems like the nation is in an emotional slump. We've got a high unemployment rate. We've got a hobbled economy, staggering public debt, as you spoke of. What can, if anything, can you do at the government level to help, restore hope in American exceptionalism?
Well, you have to look at Reagan. When Reagan was in office, we had the same basic scenario. I think it was a little better back then, but the same basic scenario. Jimmy Carter had a misery index that most people don't even know about. We had inflation that was 18% at that point in time, high unemployment. Reagan came in and he basically just said, we're going to decrease taxes. When you decrease taxes, all that does is it says the people who actually earn the money get to keep their own money. They can use that money that they earn for capital investment, for hiring, for promotion, and they actually create jobs and build the economy. When government taxes that money from the people, it's taking it away from the people that earned it, gives it to government, and government basically wastes it. They waste it on things like Solyndra, they waste it on dependency payments that really don't help people in the long run, and it's bad for the economy. So what I would like to do is I would like to, first of all, again, it gets back to my common theme, get government out of our lives, decrease taxes as much as possible so that the people that earn the money can actually reinvest it in their own businesses and create real jobs. That's the first thing. Second thing is we have to balance our budget. We cannot incur trillion-dollar deficits as far as the eye can see and expect to survive as a nation. Unless we balance our budget immediately, we are not going to survive. So that's basically what I'm fighting for.
Excellent. Okay, here's like a what if. I like to live in the what if. If the American people could somehow get around the idea and like, on board with seeking and electing, you know, moral, fiscal, constitutional leadership, and we can get a majority in there. In Pete's mind, what does he see a potential change in the landscape, you know, both be it socially and economically in this country?
Oh, I think, well, first of all, if you have a free people, the free people take care of themselves. The United States has historically been the most moral, the most charitable, the most prosperous, the most productive nation in the world. That has nothing whatsoever to do with government. It's because people always do what's best for their own interests. And if someone has a small business, they're going to try and work that business the hardest they can so they can provide good customer service, have repeat business, and actually sell a product that people want. If they can't provide a product that people want, then they're going to fail. So a free market system that just naturally encourages people to do the best they can possibly do. Right now people are so discouraged because government's overbearing. Like you said, the unemployment rate is extremely high. It's rated at like 8-point-something% right now, but that excludes everyone that's already given up looking for a job, so it's actually much, much higher. If you have the government actually providing dependency payments to people, that breaks people's spirit. Mm-hmm. People would much rather be self-responsible for their own needs rather than living off the dole, and that's just a fact. So if we can actually get government out of the way, we have to lower taxes. If we lower taxes, it would encourage all of the global corporations that fled our shores over to China, over to India, Mexico, places like that. It would encourage them to come back because we do have a very productive workforce. If those businesses came back, they would actually provide the sustenance for people. They would provide the benefits, and people would get off the government dole. So it would decrease dependency payments and decrease the costs of government. It's a win-win situation for everyone.
So less regulation, less bureaucracy, take the government out of our lives, do what they're constitutionally limited to do, and let the free market work.
The free market's the key point.
I can get behind that.
And the other thing we have to do is right now we have something called baseline budgeting. And that says that every single department in the federal government automatically increases by about 8% every single year, whether it needs it or not. I'd like to go through, first of all, and work on freezing the budget so we don't automatically increase budgets 8% every year. But then what I would like to do is for everything that's not constitutionally mandated, and again in the Constitution the federal government's only supposed to address primarily defense, immigration, represent us in world affairs, and make sure we're a safe and sovereign nation. So we have a U.S. Mint, we have the Patent Office, things like that. But it has no authority whatsoever to control the people's lives. So it should not be involved in education, it should not be involved in energy, it should not be involved in housing, banking, whatever. What I would like to do is once we have the budget balanced, I would like to actually decrease the budget on every non-constitutionally authorized department by the same percent, 8% the first year. And then the same dollar amount every year thereafter. That's what I call negative baseline budgeting. And then in 12 years, all the non-constitutional functions of the federal government would just dissipate, go down to nothing.
Excellent.
We'd be left with a government, once again, that would be spending 2 to 3, maybe 5% of gross domestic product, and the people in the states would take care of everything else as it's supposed to be done.
Sovereign states?
One big problem we have is that the federal government has a one-size-fits-all solution. They fund states with grants, and if you get a grant from the federal government, you cannot change the conditions of the grant. That completely negates the concept of 50 individual proving grounds, 50 individual states to implement programs to address society. So like for example, say Michigan wanted to address society through welfare payments through state-sponsored welfare. And other states such as Louisiana wanted to go through and address welfare through pure charity, community churches, family, friends, things like that. But you could look at the individual states and see which one is addressing the problem best. And that's how you actually come up with a solution that meets the needs of the people. The government completely goes around that, and their goal is really to create dependency on government so that the people who are dependent on government will actually vote for the people in government, and it defeats the entire purpose of a free nation.
Yeah, I can agree with that. Okay, Pete, now for the fun part. We shared your website on a local social networking site called the Beaver Den. And I asked a few questions, or asked people to ask a few questions of why they might want to support you. And I picked 4.
Okay.
I think there was only 4. You guys could have done better, but it was a last-minute request. Now I'm going to start with Mike Malash. He asks, in the current state of politics, do you think you can honestly get anything done?
Yes.
Good answer. You're going to need some help. But.
No, I do. What happens is we have to replace the old guard. There's a certain contingent of people in Washington that want to impose government solutions to government-imposed problems. And that's where Camp comes in, McCain's, Lindsey Graham's, as well as Reed Pelosi, but they don't really want to solve the problem. But there is a good contingent of people in Washington that really want to solve problems. And there are people like Amash, McClintock, Brown in the House, and then someone like Cruz and Rand Paul in the Senate. We have to go through and supplement those people. Right now they're being more or less chastised by the establishment. We have to go through and make their thinking mainstream. The other thing is the Republicans are so scared of closing down government or creating waves. So what we have to do is we have to stand for principle, we have to stand for what's right. And if our goal is to limit spending or to limit the infringement of our God-given constitutionally protected rights, if they're being infringed or if we're wasting money, we have to say no. And we can't go through and compromise and say, let's compromise with the Democrats and let's compromise with the progressives so that we don't shut down government. We make a stand for principle and say we are going to do what's right, and if the Democrats don't want to go forward, we're going to shut down government until we come to a solution.
Yeah, and every time we compromise, we keep going the wrong direction.
We always go left. The left never compromises towards the right. We have to basically say we're not going, well, as an example, with the continuing resolution that was passed in 2011, right after the Republicans gained control. We talked to a lot of different people out there, Tea Party groups and whatever. No one wanted the federal government to pass this continuing resolution unless we got something big. And big would be something like a balanced budget for 2012, no deficit spending. Big would be doing away with baseline budgeting. That's big, okay? Those are big things. The Republicans in Congress basically passed the first continuing funding resolution without getting anything. They had a $300 million cut in spending, but if you look at that in the scope of the budget, it's like $1 out of $10,000. It's minuscule, nothing. So we have to go through and stand for principle. And again, when we were doing the continuing funding resolution, we should have held out for something big, like no more baseline budgeting, as an example.
Yeah, good enough. Second question is by David Volk. He says, do you have the, Dave, intestinal fortitude to stand up to the establishment?
Oh, I have no love of the establishment whatsoever. I am not a party person. My true allegiance is totally to the Constitution. So I will not follow the party line. I will be truly constitutional.
Fantastic. Third question.
And again, what that means, again, is the federal government, as I mentioned before, all it can do is it can deal with national functions, and that's the whole purpose it was created. The states created it to perform functions on their behalf. The states do not give the federal government any authority to interfere with the lives of the people. So what I will do is I will, anytime I have the choice, any vote, whatever, I will never support increasing the scope of government over the people. So if there is a bill which says we're going to increase the Department of Education, I will not vote for that. We're going to increase Health and Human Services. I will not vote for that because we have to decrease it. And it's not doing away with the programs, it's getting the federal government out of the way so the states and the people can take care of themselves. So that's what I'm going to fight for.
Excellent. We've got a question from Rosanna Dana. She asks, who are you? What kind of person are you? Are you a liar? Are you ethical? Are you a stand-up person or a hypocrite? Who are you and what do you stand for? Now that question I think would just speak to the basic distrust we have of politicians and government in general. That's everywhere right now. And we'd like to believe in something again.
And that is a problem. And the problem is all I do is I just state the truth. And my whole goal is to enforce the Constitution. I happen to think that the Constitution establishes a perfect government for free people. And that's because the government's supposed to be extremely limited. All it's supposed to do is set up a safe and secure shell that free people can live under. And it's perfect. But our government has convoluted that totally out of proportion. And my entire goal is to decrease government spending and to get government out of our lives. That's all I want to do. And I want to supplement people like the Amashes, the McClintocks, the Browns, the Rand Pauls, and the Ted Cruzes. That's all I want to do. I want to get government out of our lives. So I am not a hypocrite. I am honest. Never been in politics before. I'm not a true politician. I'm not a career politician. I'm just putting my entire life on the line to fight for something that I agree with.
Excellent, real good. This question here, Washington is dark and evil, so how is your heart and soul? Meaning, can you stand with integrity in the city of evil?
Yes, I can. Thing is my whole goal is not to be a career politician. My whole goal is that I can see our country is being destroyed. And unless we get back on our track, our founding principles were not going to exist. I have 5 kids. I want them to be able to grow up in a nation which is free. And unless we get back on our founding principles, towards our founding principles, they're not going to have that nation. I mean, so much freedom has already been taken from our kids. If you go through an airport now, you have to go through full body scanners, which is ridiculous, and that's all government control. We have to get back to our founding principles where the people are responsible for themselves, they make the decisions that's best for themselves, and that's all I'm looking for. I have no desire whatsoever to accumulate personal power.
Excellent. That's going to take some education time too, because I think people are starting to wrap their arms around this statism, this security blanket. I think it's a falsity. But one more question here. Now, if you're going to go campaign on and rule or vote on constitutional limited government, obviously there's going to be some pushback. We've seen that with Amash and others up there. So likely what they'll do is look into your past. Is there anything in your past that could come up and compromise your decisions in the future?
No, there's nothing in my past that could compromise my decisions.
Because they'll probably use that.
They could, but I mean, I live out in the middle of the woods with the bears, bird feeders and stuff. No, I have nothing in my past. You know, I've been working all my life. I've gone to Michigan State, have a degree in accounting, owned my own business forever. There's nothing in my past that could be a problem whatsoever.
Okay, real good. We got another one. According to the judicial branch, the Supreme Court, do you think we can impeach Supreme Court justices that rule by public perception that are unconstitutional rulings?
Oh, I think we should. The Constitution says very, very clearly judges can serve on good behavior. And if they rule outside constitutional authority, they are not on good behavior. And there's one other aspect, and I think this is extremely critical. In the Constitution, it states every state and local official has to swear to support the Constitution. And that means it doesn't say swear to support the laws of the federal government or swear to support Supreme Court decisions. It says the Constitution. So if a local official is ever faced with a question, should I enforce something we know is clearly unconstitutional, such as Obamacare, that's clearly unconstitutional, or some sort of gun control initiative or parental rights treaty that the government may come up with, the state representatives have to take a stand and say, no, we are not going to implement this because it goes against the Constitution. The Constitution is not a hard document, it's a very, very simple document. And that's where that's an extremely critical check against federal abuse.
Last question comes from Aaron Miller. He's our prosecuting attorney.
I'm innocent.
That's what they all say.
He says, from your website, on the contrary, this is a quote I guess, on the contrary, it provides us with right to arm ourselves as we deem necessary to defend our free state. If our opposition is armed with tanks, we must be armed with anti-tank weaponry, not .22 caliber pistols. Does this mean he advocates personal ownership of anti-tank weapons?
He's saying that on my site. I say that if government has tanks, we should have anti-tank. That's what I say. And
Okay.
I totally agree with that. What I think is that the whole purpose of the Second Amendment is to allow a people to defend themselves from a tyrannical government, whether it's foreign or domestic. And actually, when it was implemented, we had just gotten through a war with a domestic government. England was a domestic government. So if the federal government is able to disarm the population and say, if you have a scary looking gun, we're not going to allow it, or if your gun holds more than 15 bullets, we're not going to allow it, that's effectively disarming the people.
Yeah.
And I have no problem whatsoever with a person like Ted Nugent. If he had a farm that has 3,000 acres or whatever, if he wanted to have a tank, I would have no problem whatsoever with him having a tank. And of course, if you commit a crime with a tank, then you should be prosecuted to the full extent of the law, just like if you commit a crime with a baseball bat or a knife or anything else. But if you have a free people and the purpose of the people is to allow themselves to defend themselves against a tyrannical government, you have to allow the people to be armed. And law-abiding citizens and true patriots do not commit crimes.
Absolutely. We probably need a zoning variance for a tank, wouldn't we, in Gladwin County?
Oh, that's what I was saying. You have to have zoning because you can't drive it on the streets or whatever. But if, like I say, if Ted Nugent wanted one, or if there was some hunting club or whatever that wanted one, and again, you could not shoot a tank bullet, where it could do damage. But you have to be responsible. But the government cannot disarm a population because it cannot limit the arms of a population because that's disarming them. And I want to have the most well-armed, quote-unquote militia possible so that we can defend ourselves against tyrannical governments. And we need it now more than ever. Every time a population has been disarmed, the government has come in and imposed tyranny.
Yeah.
every single time. There's not a time in history that it hasn't happened.
Okay, people, that's all the questions we have. Really appreciate you coming out to Gladwin County. We're looking forward to your race, and we'll try to help you in any way we can, and we'll try to
Appreciate
get the word out.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Godspeed.
Thank you.